Boom! Texas Longhorn. The recruiting train keeps moving down those tracks. Longhorns pick up S Zelus Hicks, a junior at Carrollton High School in Carrollton, Georgia, number 3 ranked player in the state of Georgia in his class, 2026. 6'2", 190 pounds. Longhorns go to the Peach State yet again. It's become one of those states, along with Florida, that Texas is paying a heavy amount of attention to. Tell us a little bit about Zelus Hicks out of Carrollton.
Yeah, like you said, 6'2", 190, long arms, physical safeties, got range. Started his career as at Lilburn Parkview High as a freshman, moved over to Carrollton, sophomore year, 67 tackles, 5 tackles for loss, couple interceptions as a sophomore. Here you see some junior tape of him early on. I mean, they play a world beater schedule now at Carrollton High. This is one of the most talented programs in the state of Georgia and in the Southeast region. Quarterback Juju Lewis, obviously, they have a junior corner committed to Bama, a number of other Division I prospects. He's visited Texas 3 times since January. So this is a guy that we talked about, what does Texas winning do? What does it provide? It gets guys on campus more from other areas of the country. And this is one of those guys, one of the top prospects in Georgia in the 2026 class. He has some ties to Texas now. He has a couple of family members in the DFW area, and not out of the question that his family makes a move to the DFW area when he enrolls at Texas. And the big question is going to be, when is he going to enroll at Texas, by the way? But his recruitment came down to Texas, Auburn, Tennessee, Clemson, Georgia. He had 32 offers, 10 SEC schools, a number of other schools like Ohio State, Notre Dame, you name it, Oregon, USC. All those schools came in and offered Hicks early on in the process. But a guy, again, that was on campus 3 times, and that was it was with a 7-on-7 team in the spring. He came back for the Texas Elite Camp June 1st, which is a loaded camp. So that was 3 trips to Texas in about 5-month period of time. That's pretty good. That's pretty good sign for Blake Gideon, and who got assists in this recruitment from Kenny Baker and Tashard Choice, who are the guys on the staff who are tied in to the state of Georgia, especially that greater Atlanta metro area. Big pickup for Texas because it's one of the top safeties in the country in the 2026 class.
I think about it, and you also got to mention Blake Gideon, right?
Yeah.
He actually was an assistant for a while at Georgia State. He is the safeties coach at the University of Texas. Big win for Blake, too. But tell us a little bit more about Hicks. I'm reading some stats here. 28 tackles, 2 interceptions, played varsity as a true freshman in the state of Georgia, 67 tackles a year ago, 5.5 tackles for loss. He is a top-ranked player in the state of Georgia. The Longhorns keep going over there right now, Jerry, and it's not just Zelus Hicks. There's other guys in the junior class, and even in the senior class, we know that Texas is after as well.
Yeah, no, the Hicks commitment's a big one because that is a 2026 prospect who had all the same offers that all the other top juniors in the state of Georgia have. And, you look at a linebacker at Grayson, Tyler Atkinson, who I saw last week, who was just an absolute terror on the football field. He's scheduled to be in for the Texas-Georgia game, October 19th. Texas is gaining their feet are underneath them, let's say, in the state of Georgia. Now, I think the hire Kenny Baker was really positive for Texas because Tashard Choice was working that area alone. And that's a big ask for anybody. But now you bring in Kenny Baker, who's from the area. His father was a head coach or high school football coach in the Atlanta area. So you've got 2 really solid coaches with years of relationships in the state of Georgia to work with. And that's a really good spot for Steve Sarkisian and his staff. And again, Bobby, this is again a sign that beat Alabama, beat Michigan. Texas is now in the SEC. Without the move to the SEC is a big one, by the way. Look at the schools he was considering. It was 4 SEC schools plus Clemson, which is essentially an SEC school to kids. That's the way they look at Clemson. So again, this move to the SEC has really opened up the doors in Florida and Georgia. And I think the hire of Kenny Baker to go with Tashard Choice is giving Texas an opportunity to win 2 or 3 recruitments in the Peach State every year. And I'll be honest, you want to offer a lot of kids in this state because there's so much talent in Atlanta and South Georgia.
I think it's interesting because you say it takes more than one. You think about it. I mean, Texas has Atlanta's just as big, if not bigger, than Dallas, Fort Worth,
Yes.
and Houston when it comes to number of prospects. You need two guys in those cities, and if you're going to make it a priority, you got to do that the same. Other thing I would mention, Nick Brooks in this class, big offensive lineman out of Grayson, as well as Emery Winston, the tight end, both from the state of Georgia as well. This is a big pickup too, not just because of where he's from, but how good the young man is.
That's right.
I mentioned at the outset, he's currently ranked the number 3 prospect overall in the state of Georgia in the class of 2026. There is some thought he might try to reclassify to 2025 as well. Jerry, talk a little bit about just how he ranks in the state of Georgia and look, top 75 prospect or so in the country as of right now. Is that right?
Yeah, in that class, people will have him anywhere from 30 to 50 to 70, right? He's kind of in that range. But again, he's at one of those power programs, so he has a lot of eyes on him. They play a national schedule. They have a big game against Gainesville High. Obviously, the school has put out a ton of talent, including Deshaun Watson over the years. I think it's the 2 highest paid coaches in Georgia go facing off with their $175,000 and $225,000 salaries Friday. But it's look, he is that Carrollton team. They've already been on national TV once this year. They played down at St. Thomas Aquinas High in the ESPN Kickoff Classic. He made a couple of big plays in that game. The quarterback, obviously, Juju Lewis, one of the best prospects in the country, committed to USC. I mentioned they have a junior corner going to Alabama. So this is a guy, every college sets feet on the ground at Carrollton High to evaluate the roster and evaluate the prospects on this team. So he's at every school in the country. Look at him. All the top ones, and 32 of them have offered midway through his junior year. 10 SEC schools, right? I mean, you're talking. If you just talk about the list, we talked about the 5 you consider, but then you have Oregon, you have USC, you have Notre Dame, you have Ohio State. I mean, you have North Carolina, you have Texas A&M. I mean, you go down the list, South Carolina. All these schools offered this kid. Miami, Florida, Florida State. They all offered him. So when you have all those offers and all the power schools from the state of Florida, then you have Georgia, you have Clemson, you have Tennessee, you have all these neighboring schools offer a prospect in Georgia, he's one of the elite players in that state.
He is one of 3 commitments currently in the class of 2026. The other 2, Dia Bell out of the Miami area, 6'2", 200-pound quarterback. Chris Stewart, wide receiver out of Pearland down in the Houston area, 6 foot 175 wide receiver. This one comes in the form of Zelus Hicks, 6'2", 190 pounds out of Carrollton, Georgia. Big pickup for the Longhorns. Again, Texas trying to be selective early on. Steve Sarkisian does not take a lot of early commitments, unlike other schools maybe. He's looking for the right guys at the right time, and they want Zelus Hicks, and he's now a Texas Longhorn. We're going to have Rod Babers break down a little film of Zelus. Of course, Rod's a former all-conference defensive back for the University of Texas, as well as an NFL player. I love it when he breaks down the defensive backs. He's going to do that for us next. But before we go, Jerry, I want to say one last thing to Zelus Hicks. Zelus Hicks, hook him, buddy.
Hey, what's up, folks? Welcome back to On Texas Football. I'm lifetime Longhorn Rod Babers, here to give you my personal evaluation of the latest commitment for the Longhorns, Zelus Hicks. He is a safety out of Carrollton, Georgia, 6'2", 190. Loved watching him on film. Had a good time watching this young man. He is a downhill player. It's kind of one of the best ways I can describe. It's one of the first notes I made here in my notes watching film on him. Gets downhill in a hurry. Downhill player and a sideline to sideline defender. He's one of those guys that arrives at the football. When he arrives to meet the target, to meet the ball carrier, he arrives with force. There's no doubt about that. And he knocks ball carriers back. And that's what you love about him too. He's got a really, I think he tracks the football really well, closes the cushion on ball carriers to the football really, really well. I mean, he covers ground quickly, eats up that space really quickly. I remember once talking to my man Quandre Diggs about open field tackling and what's the key to open field tackling. He's done it at the highest levels as a safety, as a corner, as a nickel, and he said, man, you got to close the space quickly. He said you cannot allow them to turn and be able to make multiple moves in space. He said once they do that, you're pretty much done. This young man closes that space quickly. Kind of reminds me of that quote from my man Quandre Diggs back in the day. So he'll minimize yak yardage. And what I like about his game, he takes great angles to the football, and he can play the run from depth. And you'll see him from depth be able to play the run and come down and take precise angles to the football to be able to be a forced run defender. The reason that is important is because these days more and more teams are playing two high safeties, two deep safeties, and they want their safeties to be able to deter the deep vertical routes with their alignment. Deep safeties, 12, 13, 14 yards off the line of scrimmage. And then still, when the ball is handed off, because a lot of teams, when they see that you have two D safeties, that they have the numbers in the box, they'll want to hand it off and they'll check to a run play. Or in the RPO game, they'll have the numbers and they'll hand it off. And you need a safety can come down and fill the alley and do it with force and do it quickly and close that ground and run the alley. I call him alley cat, so I'm not the only one. But he's got some natural alley cat to him. So he projects as a guy that can play too deep. I think he can play a single high safety, but there's not a lot of examples of his range. That's something you'll want to see. But he's a disruptor. I always classify my back seven defenders as either a disruptor or a ball hawk or a technician. No doubt this young man is a disruptor. I think he's a naturally good blitzer. To be a good blitzer, you got to have timing. I like the timing that he has when he's blitzing. And also, I think he's a guy that, he breaks really well and accelerates really well coming downhill. There's a burst when he's coming downhill to track the football. Ideal frame and measurables at 6'2", 190. Probably can put on 5 pounds, but it's not necessary. He's long, he's rangy, and he's one of the best natural run defenders that I've watched film on from the secondary position. I mean, he is a force in the run game and takes pride in it, you can tell too. So I think he projects to be, for Texas, a really good, two high, single high safety guy that can, like I said, come down and be a force for you in the run game. I think one of the things you're going to work on with him is whether he can be a coverage specialist for you. That's not something that his film shows you a lot of, but all of the physical tools that he has, they do project that he could be a guy that could hold up in coverage for you too. But love what I saw from Zelus Hicks, the safety out of Georgia.